Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and this is the Piracy Show. Now, on last week's show, we were talking about ships, crews, and I was kind of referencing Star Trek a little bit and asking some questions. Wouldn't you rather have players than NPCs on your ship? And I think a lot of people probably would rather have players, but with players, there's always one kind of inconvenience, and it's something that I feel it's something that concerns me. Not immediately. It's not one of these things like, oh dear, I'm so concerned. But something into the future, I think that is going to, I think it is going to gain some traction in the future, and it kind of worries me. And it is relative to ships being crewed by players. And, sort of here I'm just kind of spinning around in my hangar, but if you can imagine, let's say you wanted to crew someone else's ship, but that person is already logged on, they're already out, and they're already playing. If you didn't log off on their ship, which is, to kind of go into the bunk and save your game, you might still be on the planet, and they say, oh, well, you can join me, but, I got to come all the way back, I got to pick you up, you're like 2 systems away. That's really inconvenient. And then that's kind of when that little door opens and that little thought kind of pops into people's heads. Well, why can't we just form a group and you can just teleport to me? Now, initially, for me as a player, I'm all for player convenience. I've always enjoyed convenient little features in game, but given my experience gaming, I think that would be a bad thing to have something like that ever implemented in game. Now, I'm pretty sure that the default dev point of view on this would be no. But, going into the future, right now it's not that big a deal. Someone says, oh, I'm on Port Olisar. Come pick me up. They're like, 30 seconds away at most? The most difficult part will probably be finding a spot to park your ship and telling them, oh, I'm on landing pad A01 or whatever. But as we move into the future, this is going to be something that people are going to be asking for. And if enough people get together and start pushing that button, that I don't know. I think that would be a really bad thing for the game, and my reasoning behind it is, I guess you would have to be a World of Warcraft player to really understand. But going back into the old days of WoW, I'm talking the old days of WoW. Let's say you're all in Undercity, and you say, hey, who wants to go run Sunken Temple? Well, shit, Sunken Temple is all the way down on the south end of the map. There's no flying in the world back in this time, so you'd all have to get together, get on your mounts, and then make the entire voyage all the way down. You get to Sunken Temple, in the old version of Sunken Temple. You could be down in that dungeon for an hour, 2 hours, depending. If you actually knew the order and knew all the bosses and all that. I'm digressing a little too much, but it was that trip. It was that journey all throughout the world, kind of crossing that great big bridge between, the northern end of Lordaeron and the southern end. And it really helped give you a sense of the world that you were in, the world that you were inhabiting, the world that you were living in. And once flight came into the game and once teleporting became like a really, it's like, oh, well, do we have a warlock in the group? We can just teleport them. Or, a mage portal or whatnot. Mage portals weren't too bad, but overall, once a lot of that stuff went away and once you could just kind of queue up for dungeons and you would just appear in the dungeon, you really lost a sense of the world that you were in. And I think that in a way, I mean, it was a major boon, and was a major convenience to players. I mean, as a tank myself, I have to say that, I enjoyed things like Dungeon Finder to an extent. It just kind of made queuing up and doing dungeons a lot easier, and I could just farm up badges so much more quickly. But I think it really, in the end, it really cost us a part of the experience that, it's really difficult to quantify and qualify, but I don't know, it stopped feeling like a world and started feeling like a series of instances that you could connect to. And so, even though I think that, yeah, it would be a convenience in Star Citizen if, let's say, I'm flying around in my Cutlass and someone says, hey, I'll jump into your gun turret, but I'm all the way back on, R-Corp, I'm all the way back on Area 18. Well, here, just join my group, teleport to group, boom, you're there. Even though that would be a huge convenience, I would be against it. I think that it would rob us of a sense of the world. Now, ordinarily, it would be something that I would be all in favor of, but, having had this experience already and having been through this, I kind of feel like it would be a huge negative to the game. I think that, I don't know, I think that really the value of it is in all the intangible little details that are so difficult to describe. And I hope that going into the future, once we have a really huge world to explore, and going back to the space station and picking somebody up isn't a matter of 30 seconds. It's a matter of like maybe an hour or more. I'm really hoping that the devs will kind of say like, that's not the Star Citizen experience. I'm pretty sure they will, 99%, but at some point, people are seriously going to start clamoring for something like this. And to me, that's my cautionary tale. That's what I would say is my argument against it. I'm not, not saying like, oh, well, you guys are a bunch of terribles and you just want everything handed to you, blah, blah, blah. No, I understand. I understand having things conveniently. I do. But I think that there would be something so great that would be lost in having a feature like that in the game. I don't know. That's my opinion. And feel free to comment below if you agree or disagree. But that's pretty much... I really hope that we never see a feature like that in Star Citizen. I'm pretty sure we're not going to, 99%, but... you never know what's going to happen in the future. Now, as a counter to that, for something to kind of make it a little bit of an easier pill to swallow, I would hope that in the future, after the game is up and running and on its feet, that there's actually enough content, like enough ground-based content, whether it be like detective missions or policing missions or bounty hunter missions on the planets themselves, at least the larger worlds, like Area 18 or Terra or Earth or wherever, that if a player ever finds themselves kind of stuck all by themselves on a planet, that there's still enough stuff for them to do where they might not necessarily even have to get into a spaceship. But obviously, that's something that would be further down the road. To try and get a whole bunch of missions and content, all ground-based, just kind of thrown into the game at this stage, I think would probably be a bad idea. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done, and the last thing they need to do is worry about, let's make sure there's enough ground-based content. At least ground-based content that, you would play out fully on the ground and not just like, you walk up to a mission agent and he says, go scan this asteroid and come back. But enough stuff for people to do, completely, in a terrestrial environment. I mean, who knows? With the Drake Dragonfly, maybe there'll be like little exploration missions that they can do on those larger procedural worlds. We'll have to wait and see. But for more complex stuff that would be more involved and maybe even have a little story to it, I'd be fully okay with that just after the game is up and running. Anyways, those are my random thoughts and musings for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.
Quantum travel initiated.